In early January, horrific fires drastically changed the landscape of California for years to come. We recognize the brave men and women who put their lives on the line to extinguish these historic flames. We also want to offer our support to the many investigators in California that are facing uncertainty. PI Perspectives has made a donation to the CALI Disaster Relief Fund, and we want to encourage our listeners to do the same. You can learn more by visiting calipi.org. That's CALI-PI.org. Click on the CALI Disaster Relief and Humanitarian Effort Fund button. When tragedy strikes, we need to lift our industry up. A link will be in the show notes. Thank you for your support. This episode is brought to you by 4 Pillars Research, a nationwide leader in policy limit searches, now expanding its services to support private investigators working with injury attorneys. Since 2019, 4 Pillars Research has been known for its professionalism and top-tier customer service. If you're a private investigator, you know how crucial it is to provide accurate and complete information to your clients. Research can be time-consuming and challenging, especially when accuracy is non-negotiable. That's where 4 Pillars Research comes in. Unlike other firms that outsource their work, 4 Pillars handles everything in-house, ensuring you receive precise policy limit details of the at-fault party before litigation even begins. With 4 Pillars, you get more than just data. Each client is paired with a dedicated client engagement specialist, ensuring personalized service and meticulous attention to detail. And for those of you handling multiple cases, they even offer loyalty programs for high-volume clients. So if you're looking to elevate your investigative work and provide your clients with the best possible service, contact 4 Pillars Research today. Let them handle the complex research so you can focus on delivering results. That's 4 Pillar Research, your trusted partner in policy limit research. Reach out now and take your investigative services to the next level. Do you enjoy our podcast and the guests we bring you? Since 2019, Matt and his team have done their very best to give you amazing shows each week. If you feel like our show has helped you to be a better investigator, or maybe even inspired you to become an investigator, please let us know. We're looking for testimonials. Drop Matt an email with a recorded 20 to 30 seconds of you talking about this podcast. You can also email him something verbal about the website. His email is matthews@satellitepi.com. And if you really feel blessed for having this content, consider supporting Matt and our show by joining Investigators Toolbox. You really have to see version 2.0. And at just 49 cents a day, it's a no-brainer. Now let's jump in to this week's episode. Welcome to the next episode of PI Perspectives. Today we welcome back Christina Duran as we bring the spotlight to missing and exploited children in sex trafficking investigations. Christina has had an amazing career and has a passion for helping sex trafficking victims. This discussion is geared towards how you can get involved in this type of work. Please welcome Christina Duran and your host, New York private investigator Matt Spaier.
And welcome to this week's episode of PI Perspectives. This is Matt Spaier, your host. Today is, this month is Sex Traffic Awareness Month. And we had a guest on last year, and we decided it'd probably be cool to talk again in January. So I asked Christina Duran to come back and talk about sex traffic awareness. She's from a Matrix Investigations based out of California and parts unknown. So Christina, I want to welcome you back to the program. How are you?
I'm good. In spite of all the fires, we're holding up pretty well. Thank you.
Yeah. So where in California are you based out of?
Well, my actual home office is in Riverside, California. However, I do a lot of work, and we have been staying primarily in Little Tokyo, which is downtown area of LA. Mm. And in the downtown area of LA, it's about, I want to say, we were receiving a lot of like notices of potential evacuation. So we weren't near like the Palisade fire, which sadly my understanding is that the Palisades doesn't even exist anymore. Like no grocery stores, no schools, like that's just gone.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's
definitely crazy.
It's horrible. It's horrific. Yeah, it's horrific. I haven't checked within the last couple of days in regards to like the containment, but the fires are still really active. the air quality is just horrendous. And again, us as Americans, we can't just buy one mask or 10, we have to buy 50. So there's just no
Right. The
masks or
shortages, right?
we can't,
Probably
right. We can't buy
breadwinner.
one roll of toilet paper. No,
Yeah.
yeah, it's the whole toilet paper thing going on now. So
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody's making money out there on something. Well, yeah, it's, I mean, every time you hear that it's coming down, like things are ramping up, then the winds pick back up and it goes crazy. So I'm sure we'll be dealing with this for, quite some time. I know the California Association of Legal Investigators does have a disaster relief fund. We had Justin Hudson on last week talking about that, and I know we ran a promo for that. But it's been very cool to see folks in our industry actually reach out and donate to that fund. And it is available for investigators in California. If you've suffered a loss or anything, please make sure you go and take advantage of that.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and amazing enough, even though where we live at, we're not affected by the fires just because of the high winds. We were without power for 4 days, just preventative, just turning off the electricity in its entirety. So
Yeah, it's crazy.
different times.
Every day, folks are getting their news from TikTok, but that's not going to happen anymore. Apparently this weekend, but by the time this is airing, it's
Right.
not happening
Aren't we
anymore.
just changing aren't we just changing our location to Bogota or Canada or something like that?
Yeah, there you
Aren't we
go.
just doing
VPN.
that?
We'll get to do that.
Put a VPN on so we can still buy the spandex workout outfits and
Exactly. Yeah, it's very important. So before we dive into the topic here, because I do want to move on from the fires and all that, and I'm glad you're okay. Uh, for folks who don't know who you are and what you do in the industry, just give a quick background.
So I am a certified criminal defense investigator. I'm also a certified exploited human trafficking search and recovery agent. And it's interesting. I've been working getting my qualified hours. That was one of the things that I've always gone back and forth into as either doing case management for people that are exploited or actually doing the search and recovery myself, which I'm sure there's nothing more just adrenaline run and thrilling as hunting a human, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we as I was sharing the conference that I attended in Colombia, they did just text me now because of the nature of the organization. They asked me not to name them.
Okay.
They said, "Oh, we are." We're currently trying to work with a government entity as well for like additional funding because a lot of us want to do a good job. We want to help, but we also this industry, you can really, unless of course you're working with maybe the embassy or Homeland Security or a government funded industry. Most of this is just investigators like myself and you that just go out there and do the work, right? Without without the compensation.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
something to be said about doing that and the challenge behind it. I know, there are organizations out there that do it. We've always focused in on Skull Games. I think it's a great organization that pairs investigators with law enforcement and with rescued victims who are now helping as part of a team to try and identify missing and exploited people that maybe don't know how to reach out for help. It's pretty amazing.
there's so many great organizations that work alongside law enforcement and safe housing organizations and especially out here where I'm in the close to the San Diego area, which is of course down by the border and kind of close-ish to what you call the circuit, like the Nevada, Southern California area. There's a lot of recovery homes, safe housing, because that's the thing as well, is that once you do recover a trafficked victim, at that point, what do you do to keep them safe? Luckily enough, I have been appointed by the Los Angeles Juvenile Panel in LA County as one of the CSEC. So I am an investigator to help the kids when they are in commission of being human trafficked. A lot of times they are used to commit crimes. So say, for instance, they're being sex trafficked. They'll also
Right.
be used to, let's say, carjack. So, and that's a crime, right? Carjacking is a crime.
Right.
So I get to help them, package their story, and, and the district attorneys out here are wonderful, where they just know, you kind of get it when you have a case on your desk where there's a 15-year-old on Fig Street outside of a hotel that, just carjacked a 36-year-old guy.
Right.
Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So yeah,
It'll
they
special.
kind of get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they kind of get it.
So, like, how did you get into this? Like, what, obviously you care, right? And you had this desire to get involved. How did you make that transition from, an everyday investigator to somebody who's now involved with this whole process?
Well, there's a thing to be said to be being called young and dumb, and that's what it was. I was young. I was asked by a college professor who was actually an agent who knew that I was bilingual, and asked if I would be, willing to help out for a couple of weeks in Miami. And those couple of weeks turned out to a couple of months, which turned out to 9 months. And we kept in contact, and there were a couple of attorneys that I worked with, and one had reached out with me. He was actually Dominican born. And in 2015, he it was great at that time. I wasn't young, but I
Right.
was going through a transition in my personal life to where I was doing criminal defense, as was he, and he had an opportunity to go back to his home country, and asked if I'd be willing, as a Spanish speaker, to go with him to work doing more of the liaison, like the case management, rather than the actual search and recovery. Or because back in the like say the 90s and stuff, we used to be able to just rope, right? Which
Right.
you can't do now. Now we've got technology. You more are, let's say, contacting people through the internet, which we just didn't have Facebook back then. So it was all kind of face to face. So I decided to go out there. And the interesting thing is, being from Southern California and Chicana, I thought, oh, this is great. I'm fluent. And then when you go to a different country and they're, que lo que, you're like, whoa. So it took me about 3 weeks to
Yeah.
figure out how to speak
Tyler.
theirs.
Yeah.
My God. I remember calling my aunt and crying, and I'm like, I don't speak Spanish. And she's like, no, you do, they don't. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so just learning a different dialect.
It's
And then also,
not Castilian Spanish, right?
to say, not that, out here, in Southern California, we speak anything close to, our Spanish is definitely not Castilian either. But so, and then learning the culture, and that, I think at that point I realized, I'm not here to change the culture. I'm not here to change anybody. And who am I, saving, thinking that, I'm here to, teach anybody how to live their life. Because, honestly, when people are targeted in these underdeveloped countries, this is, how they feed their family. This is how
Yeah.
they build houses. This is how they get themselves out of poverty.
Yeah.
So at that point, is when I kind of got together with another volunteer who was from the United States, and she had worked with the Justice Department. And we decided to do schooling and community development, because you just can't, go in there with your American mind thinking, well, you just do something different, right?
Right. Right. No guns
So,
blazing. That's not going to work, right? You got to have a plan, right?
right.
You fix
Put
things.
ketchup on those fries. What are you talking about? I mean, just it's very humbling, and you think, as an American, we are very, very fortunate, and the opportunities that we have, and um, but sometimes this is definitely this is how they feed their family. This is how they take care of themselves.
Yeah.
So, having that sense of transition and providing alternatives is if you really want to make a difference, that's what you should do, is provide alternative services rather than just your mindset of, So that's kind of when I was younger, got into it. I could never, unless of course I wanted to join an actual government agency, right? Which I think I shared with you. Every time I've, worked for the public defender's office, I get my first paycheck, and I'm like, oh God, no.
Yeah.
No, no, private. So, I mean, I've got some private cases. I had case out that a family from actually Palm Springs, California, paid me privately. So you can find, private cases where they'll pay you as an investigator. But those are kind of few and far between. A lot of people that find themselves in a situation where their child or adult loved one, because it's not just children that are trafficked, right? Is trafficked. It just kind of hand in hand. They don't have the financial resources to genuinely pay.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the biggest hurdles working in private industry is, and I come across these situations every now and then, right? And you go and you do a consultation, and you talk about options, things that are available, and then it comes to, okay, well, it's going to cost X amount of dollars, and then as soon as that happens, it's over. It's done.
I know. And then, I had a mom that contacted me. She's a single mom, and of course, latchkey kids are always targeted, right? You get a lot of people that'll be like, "Oh, I'm worried about my kid," and it's like you're a two-parent home, you're a mid-class income, you're with your kid 24 hours. No one's gonna steal your kid out of the Mervyns. Remember that whole like, "Oh, they're gonna steal my kid," the Adam Walsh story, right? But that's just not realistic, right? They're gonna prey on the lower functioning child. A lot of these girls, their reading and writing skills, or even boys, they have IEPs, they're latchkey kids. So she's a full-time mom at a casino. So her hours are wonky. Her daughter's 14. She's just basically relying on her child to go to school, come home. And her child was being trafficked out of a Taco Bell. Like literally a grown man had set her up, and again, friends of hers, to sit at a Taco Bell, and there were people there that were, she was being trafficked. So the wonderful thing is, once there's an investigator like myself that comes in, law enforcement, I have never had any issue at all with them setting up, with them helping out, with one phone call away. Right. They're on it. They are just unbelievably on it. I had a case out in San Luis Obispo. Same thing. 15-year-old girl outside of a 7-Eleven. I can't even tell you the amount of help that you will get if you have a traffic case.
Yeah, well, that's good. Yeah,
especially tell them you're unarmed. Tell them you're unarmed. Yeah. Are you armed? No. Oh my God.
There you go. Okay, so we're going to jump out. We're going to take a quick break. And when I come back, I want to talk about like the nuts and bolts of what it looks like to do this type of investigative work. You had mentioned there's an administrative side. There's obviously an investigative side. There's desktop research. There's in the field. I'd like the listeners to kind of understand the different angles that you can take if you're interested in getting into this type of work. The different things that are available. So we're going to jump out and take a break and come back. I want to dive into that topic. So everybody sit tight, and we'll be right back.
After 4 years of development, Scope Now is proud to announce the release of Grid. Grid combines OSINT with real-time physical data to achieve new levels of intelligence gathering. Grid supports over 50 data types and hundreds of thousands of sources. Upgrade your OSINT capabilities with Grid and elevate your intelligence team today at scopenow.com. The Campbell Group has teamed up with PI Perspectives to offer listeners top-notch, affordable insurance solutions. Private investigators can get insurance for their business for as low as $305 per year. Apply now at piperspectivesinsurance.com and receive a quote back within 24 hours. Check out the PI Institute of Education at piinstitute.com. Since 1989, Kelly Riddle has been teaching on subjects such as surveillance, nursing home investigations, insurance fraud, domestic investigations, hidden assets, and accident scene investigations. The PI Institute of Education is a featured learning partner in the investigatorstoolbox.com. So check out the free content on the site, then visit the Institute for more great savings on additional classes. Over the past year, our industry has been the target of foreign governments and agencies that have attempted to recruit unsuspecting investigators to gather intelligence or immediate expatriates. PI Perspectives is teaming up with the Federal Bureau of Investigations to get the word out about this ongoing crisis. If you've been contacted by an individual or company that might seem suspicious, please contact the FBI at tips.fbi.gov. You can also contact the New York field office at 212-384-1000 to report suspicious activity in any state. The link is also in the show notes. Even if you completed a job and it still doesn't sit right with you, you can report this activity. The only way to stop this trend is to work together. So let's do it. Satellite Investigations has launched its new website full of great new content. Matt and his team have released some great informative blogs. Make sure you log in to LinkedIn and follow Satellite Investigations for the latest content.
And welcome back to PI Perspectives. This is Matt Spaier, your host. Today we're here with Christina Duran from Matrix Investigations. We're talking about missing and exploited children, adults, the sex industry, and all this craziness. So, Christina, thank you so much for joining us today.
Always great to talk to you.
Yeah. Okay. So, before we took the break, I had talked about how I wanted to talk about the different verticals within this type of investigative work. We had talked about the administrative side. We had talked about the desktop research. And then we talked about the boots on the ground aspect to it. Can you break it down a little bit? Maybe I'm missing something in there too. I'm just assuming.
Not at all. So genuinely, I have worked with several nonprofit organizations. I've worked with a lot of different organizations. I was actually a California state operator at one time for a nonprofit organization. And a lot of times, they will want like private investigators like you and I, where one will kind of do the intake, right? Where let's say we'll take the case from the onset. They haven't heard from Mary for, Mary's 14 and they've reported her as a runaway, but this is the 8th time she's been reported as a runaway, and law enforcement has her in their database as a runaway. And, our law enforcement just doesn't have the capability to go knock on doors and go look for Mary. Okay. Right. We've heard that Mary might be with John. This is John, her 29-year-old boyfriend, we'll call him. And I'm not, and just between you and I and everyone who's listening, I'm not a fan of the trafficking terminology. I don't like it. I don't like to call anybody anything derogatory. Not a fan at all of any of the, I don't even know where they came from. And they're really just they're outright repulsive, and we should get rid of the name tags that we call, John is fine, but and I'm sure you know what I mean, like calling them gorillas and I can't. I'm wearing 2025. Nonetheless, so Mary's missing. She's 14. We know she's got a boyfriend. Heard maybe from one of Mary's little school friends that she's been at a Motel 6. Mary, you can't track her by her phone. Law enforcement, it's, the pinging of the phone. I know a lot of people watch a lot of TV, and it's very hard to get somebody's phone pinged, right? Back in the day, we used to have like organizations outside of Canada and outside of the United States that did that. But nowadays you just can't ping phones. So what will happen is that they'll contact an organization, like perhaps like We Find the Missing or some sort of sex trafficking organization, or just a missing person organization. So they'll be the intake specialist, right? The liaison. So that person will manage the case. This person will be kind of like the contact with the family, contact with the actual person that they assign or people that they assign to search, right? The agent, the search. So I may get contacted. Hey, Christina, we know that she's in San Diego. Is that anywhere near to you? Yes. Okay. So Christina and some of Christina's staff will go out and put up flyers and just kind of put the word out. And the nice thing is when it's usually a community, if this happens in the United States, okay? Because we're going to use the United States. If we go to another country, whole different ball game.
Right, all bets are off, definitely.
Right. We don't even, oh gosh, needless to say. And that's a whole different operation, but we're talking about something maybe in Southern California. So then you'll have, the agents that'll go out and put the flyers out, contact friends, maybe contact, people that she's been with, go to John's house as well. Just kind of put the pressure out there. Once there's kind of like pressures and so forth as well, if you can get an Amber Alert, like you've kind of done your job as well. Right. If you can get an Amber Alert as well. Once you kind of get a sighting too, the agent along with the like case manager and liaison. You'll get a lot of people, even some people that aren't like prior law enforcement or even private investigators that just want to help, that definitely just want to help. And keep in mind as well, while like leads are coming in, those are going to go to like the organization. So whomever is kind of handling those as well, like you'll get people that are like respond to your flyers. Usually they'll put like the PI's number on there too, and then they'll put like the organization's number on there as well. But just kind of taking it from, like, I had a case not too long ago where we thought somebody was being trafficked, and we ended up finding him at a mental facility.
Right.
So it's not always, I mean, just because he was trafficked prior type of thing as well. I had a case that I was reached out to in Union, New Jersey, and I thought, God, I'm really far. And I remember the whole time I'm in LA while this is happening. And, I called the mayor out there and I said, this girl's autistic and she's 14 years old, and they're contacting her through Messenger, and the mom has the tablet. The mom owns a bodega, right? And the parents are straight from the PR. So the parents are, there's not a lot of trafficking out there. There might be some, but not like we have in like San Diego, California, so they get a whole, no. And this girl is, although, she's mentally probably an 8 or 9 year, she's stunning. So she's over there in like Union City. So I get a hold of the mayor and they put it on the news.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. And then I get a call from the captain. I never even had to get on a plane, Matt. And they found her.
That's great.
I just saw and I was the whole time unpacking, like,
yeah. That's the beautiful thing of like crowdsourcing, right? And you've seen that as social media and we live most of our lives on our phone now, right? I've seen that uptick in crowdsourcing investigation and using that as a technique. It's quite amazing to see it work when it works. I mean, it's like, wow, how did you solve that?
Yeah. And the thing that stuck too, because I had reached out to a couple of local people out there in New Jersey, and they were like, yeah, for 10 grand, we'll help you out. And I was like,
right. Oh. Yeah. This is not in the budget, right?
Exactly. I'm getting nothing, and I'm paying for my plane ticket. I was like, oh, but I mean, there's got to be, look, with me, running a investigation firm, I just haven't sat down for the funding. I know there's funding because I've seen other organizations. Some people are just really, really good at finding the grants, finding the money, and they're out there, right? It's just I haven't ever been in that mindset where I've had an afternoon to sit down and figure out, okay, how am I going to raise $500,000 to have a full-time search and recovery firm, right? To where people can just call and I can go find their kid.
Yeah, I think it's.
I mean, that would be a dream.
Yeah, and there are organizations out there that do that, so it's even 100, more along 100. The lines of like, yeah, if you could find somebody that you trust, right, to do all that stuff. Like there are ways to answer that question, and I think like finding your role in all that, right? How do you fit into that vertical? What's your passion? Are you a boots on the ground person? Are you a researcher? Is that your passion? Are you somebody who's good at maybe raising funds on the admin side? You had talked about intake and all that, and just understanding, where does your passion lie in all this, right? You want to get involved. You want to do something. How do you see yourself doing it? I think it's a question you got to ask yourself, right?
Right. And then also, because I've in this whole, I could probably send you maybe a better map of like because there's, you mentioned again, the social media. I mean, there's people that will do nothing but social media digging. There's even organizations that you and I have worked with that I have used that, if I tell them it's a trafficking case, I mean, they'll do it for cost.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they want me to say their name.
Okay. Well.
But I'm so weird about saying name dropping people, but I've used them before. I had a trafficking case in the Dominican Republic, and they were saying that she was a hairstylist, and I was like, she's 13. It's like, not to say that 13-year-olds can't do your hair, but she's not out doing hair all day. So they ran social media checks, and they, had the pictures and everything, to where we got, because you gotta, once you get law enforcement's attention, they're on it. They're like, okay, yeah, okay, you got a case. We're gonna help you, right? But once so they did all the social media for me for, I think they charged me like $99,
Nice.
and I had
Yeah.
like 300 pages of social media stuff, and they're
Great.
amazing. And they don't even speak Spanish. I was like, and you guys, okay, you didn't even speak Spanish? And I was super impressed with them.
Yeah, there's some amazing tools that's out there too. And again, like, who's going to say no to, wanting to be a part of all this? And even, getting back to that whole, crowdsourcing and all that, folks, like, when they want to be involved, they want to add themselves to the narrative. They want to be able to tell their friends, hey, like, I assisted in the recovery of this person, or, you hear what they're talking about on the news. Let me tell you my role in this and how I did it. And it like, you see stuff like that happening. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, there's a American Legion, and I think, and I can say their names because I work with them a lot. They're all volunteers, and they're all like former Marines, Navy SEAL, or whatever. I'm sorry, whatever they are.
Yeah, whatever they're former.
They're really cool guys, and they're all big guys. And you just tell them something, and they're all, they're like fearless.
Yeah.
Fearless. And they'll go out and they'll go find somebody and probably beat the guy up. So
don't ask, don't tell. You just bring the person home. So
exactly.
what are some of the challenges that you've come across in doing this kind of work? Obviously funding's, one of them. What are some of the other things that, in your line of work of doing this, that where you're just like, darn it, I just can't connect the dots here?
I had a case, and this girl, she was so savvy and she was so smart. And this is out of Southwest. And the sad thing is, she was a foster kid. And when they're foster kids, nobody gives a shit.
Yeah, it's a different thing. I've seen stuff here in New York. It's just horrific with foster cases. Where foster parents were abusing people, and then they were just given more kids, because they simply applied and nobody did any backgrounds. It's I've seen some crappy things on that too, for sure.
That's the thing. It's like when they have like a single mom that loves them and is worried, if they have like a parent, if they have somebody advocating, if they have just like, they're being exploited just because maybe the parents have to be like absentee, but
Right.
when they're awarded the state and they're just throwaways.
Yeah, it's sad, for sure.
They're just throwaways. And then like this girl, she's so smart. She's so savvy. She's just amazing. And I want to adopt her. And then I'm thinking, like, I work so much.
Right.
Like, yeah, I'm gonna, and she's telling me, Christina, I'm gonna go to Vegas because I can make more money out there. Don't come get me.
It's a red flag. Yeah, right there.
Well, yeah, she's driving an Audi at 15, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's
she's like, don't, the only it was her dependency attorney who contacted me. And her dependency attorney said, look, we have this budget. Can you find her? And I said, yeah, we'll find her. And then when they found her, they put her in juvenile hall.
Wow.
And I thought, God.
That's why she was telling you, don't
why'd I
come after
find
me.
her?
Yeah.
I know, I thought, and then she was like, she was one of the best people I ever met. And I really hope life turns out well for her. And I really wish that we were more of I think we're such a divided organization. I wish we were a more organized organization. And I wish we were a more compensated organization. And I wish we were a more well-oiled organization, to where from the very beginning, you could do a search, you could do a recovery, and then you could save that soul.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of goodwill in people wanting to do work like this, but maybe either not knowing how to do it or just not being organized to do it. I think that's a fair argument. I mean, it's a fair assessment of, maybe one of the challenges of just, you take a lot of good-hearted people that just aren't organized to do things the right way. And I feel like maybe if there was better management, maybe there'd be a better ratio of recovery, possibly.
Yeah, and there has to be. I'm sure there's organizations out there from like start to finish have got it together. I just have never been in contact with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've been
That's
doing this since I was 22 years old, and I'm, just a little bit older now. Yeah.
25.
Oh, so I don't know. I wish, and that's so, and that's the thing. A lot of us do this. We have families. We've got, we have lives. We want to do a good job. If I had all the money in the world, if I got, set up with one of the Kardashians, maybe I could figure it out.
Yeah.
With
So
one of the people who want to do good.
yeah, so the next thing I wanted to ask you is like, what are some of the misconceptions? We talk about like, oh, well, hey, this is what you see on TV. This is what really happens, or here's what you saw in this movie. Well, there was some artistic
Yeah.
license here. What are some of the misconceptions that you've uh, I guess experienced in the 3 years that you've been doing this?
All right. And so the funny thing is that most people are worried it's going to happen to their kid.
Mm.
Like most people, when you talk about it, they are terrified. And not to say it can't, right? But they're worried, oh my gosh, someone's going to take my kid out of a shopping cart, and then my kid is going to be down in SoCal trafficked.
Right.
Like they just think that's a thing. And I'm not saying it's not, right? There's a lot of, I feel that there are a lot of people. I was talking to an attorney that she does dependency work, and her kid, and I had to tell her, I said, your kid is getting trafficked. She's like, no. I was like, okay, look at the case, read the case. Why? Okay, this is a case where she shot and killed somebody that was chasing her. It was like, this happened like right on the blade. Okay, why is your 15-year-old on the blade? What is your 15-year-old? Why is she the only girl on the blade? And why is this like 36-year-old guy chasing her down with a car? Like, why? Like, this is a trafficking case. So just the whole misconception that with that, it's like thinking, one thing, I think a lot of people can't put in their heads that it doesn't just happen to little girls. It happens to men. It happens to boys. There's a lot of like stigma around it that it just happens in like Mexico. Yeah, no, right. There are areas as well. I think there's a lot of people will watch something on TV or maybe watch a special, and like the Jeffrey Epstein thing, right? It doesn't just happen, it's not just, professionals, politicians and some like far off island. It's just, that's, I've seen trafficking happen at a Chevron gas station in like La Jolla, California, like one of the nicest parts, right, at the Taco Bell. I mean, you just see, and while cops are coming in and out to pump gas in their car, well, they don't pump gas there, they pump it at but whether, and maybe hopefully they're not eating there, but but just like right under your nose, people think that like when this attorney got the case, she was like, no, this is a clear cut, she just decided to shoot this guy. And I was like,
I remember years ago, I worked on something in New York, and I don't do a ton of this work. I do more of the Children's Victim Act stuff, right? So it's a similar but different, right? So this was a trafficking case where it was in Manhattan, and it was in like a big building that oversaw Central Park, a beautiful building, beautiful. And my role in this was I was hired by the attorney to go up and just measure and photograph the rooms, the apartment. I guess he was putting a case together, and he just wanted to get just a lay of the land. And they had renovated the apartment. They were looking to try and sell it. The owners just wanted to be done with it. They weren't involved. They were renting to people that were basically running a trafficking thing out of this particular building. And I remember going into the bedrooms and just seeing like the views were stunning, right of Central Park and all that other stuff. And it was super high up, but the rooms were tiny, right? And it's just like, yeah, someone was kept in this room like day and night for like months at a time. They weren't allowed to go out. And you're just thinking like, wow, this tragedy. And this is right in Midtown New York. Like you would never think of like, okay, this is a nice building where very wealthy people live here, probably, right? And there's just underbelly of just craziness going on right under everybody's noses. And it's like, it makes you think twice. And, having children, as I do, just like the horror of, what this person's parents went through, must have gone through with this person who was essentially incarcerated in Park Avenue or, overseeing Central Park. It's just crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Yeah. And the sad thing too is, these victims, a lot of them are in that survival mode. I have a case out here. I don't even want to name the county because I'm afraid. Where I wrote up a report because she was 16 when her trafficking started, when her grooming started, and she's living with the grandparents. And this guy's a security guard and just checks her right out of school, like nothing. Checks her right out of school and starts exploiting her. Now we've got all these like internet platforms, these, you just put them on these fan pages and all these stuff, and you don't even have to necessarily, you can cyber exploit them, right? Sexually. Yeah. So he's got her on all these sites and she's feeling so victimized, thinking, well, if I find him other people, he'll leave me alone, because she's a kid and she's got a kid mindset. And here he is using her credit, opening up accounts, using her credit cards, getting hotels, has her sister doing it. And he's just, got about, he's an organization. So he's got about 10 girls and all this stuff with the help of her because she's in survival mode. Like if I get him other people, he's going to leave me alone. He's going to leave me alone. I'm going to be able to get my little job at Walmart and I'll just give him pictures of myself. And, I just have to be raped by him every weekend or whatever. And, once the police get involved, they see all the credit cards are in her name. Cars are everything's in her name because he's been using her name. So she's charged with human trafficking.
Right.
But it started when she was 16. Right. When he starts checking, he's a security guard that starts checking her out of school. And she's looking at doing 25 years in prison. And now she's 20.
That's absolutely.
Because they're sophisticated and they've been following him for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
So they're charging her.
I want to kind of wind things down here. But before we do, the last question that I had for you, you obviously attend conferences. You're part of panels. You kind of got your ear to the ground here in this particular vertical of the industry. What are some of the things that you're hearing at these conferences? What are some of the new things that are going on to be aware of, or things that are available to do? Like, what are you seeing in 25 under the new things that are on the horizon?
Can I name now? I don't know if I can name them.
You don't have to name anybody. It's fine.
I went to the conference that you and I attended last year when we met that attorney and his wife. I was blown away at the accountability that they are doing with the cash apps and the. Yeah. I'm just so worried about being named in anything. In California. No, okay. I'm like, okay. So I don't even want to be. So I was blown away at what they are doing to help victims. Let's say, for instance, a victim's recovered and now they're holding people accountable. They're holding that hotel accountable. They're holding the agency where they got paid, right? The facility, because that's a lot of things. I mean, there's a lot of these agencies, the money transfer sites, we'll call them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They're holding them accountable. And then I was like, wait, what? I'm texting everyone, like, you have got to listen to this. And once your client is recovered, can you please file a lawsuit? I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And the money's put in a trust. So these people can't go blow it away on like shoes.
Yeah.
It's put in a trust for their education, for their housing. Oh my God, they're going to have a normal life.
Yeah.
I was blown away. I was blown away. And I still haven't had the time to kind of connect with that. I've met a lot of great people at that conference that are really, they just kind of, they really had answers. They had answers. And it was wonderful.
So you're talking about the National Association of Legal Investigators.
You named them.
That was the conference that we were at last year. And crazy enough, those two attorneys are actually speaking again there which when this episode airs, it's going to be like 2 or 3 days from there. So if you're going to that conference, you're in for a treat, and they'll be there again. So.
That conference, and I just came back from a conference. So
yeah, no,
we
talked about this line. Being able to go to all these things, it's difficult. You got to pick and choose. So Christina, we're going to wind down here. Thank you so much for making yourself available and coming on and chatting about this stuff. It's always a subject matter that's close to my heart, and I feel like every January I have to dedicate at least one episode to talking about this stuff and getting out there. So I appreciate you coming on. How do folks get a hold of you if they have any questions?
Well, my website is www.amatrixinvestigations.com, and they can just put an inquiry out there. Also, they can Google me, but I'm pretty accessible. And the next time I have something, because as soon as we get off the phone, I'll probably be contacted about something in New York, and I'll hit you up.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. It all works out there. I'm not worried at all.
Yeah.
So we'll put your contact information in the show notes and all that. So so thank you again for coming on and making yourself available. And thanks everyone for tuning in to the episode, and we'll catch everybody next time on the next show. Take care.
Likewise. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for checking out the show. We thank Christina for coming on and giving us information on how to do this type of investigative work. Please consider making a donation to the CALI Relief Fund. You can find a link in the show notes. We also want to thank Four Pillars Insurance for sponsoring the show. Additional thanks to Campbell Insurance Group, Scope Now, and the PI Institute for Education. Also, don't forget about investigatorstoolbox.com, where you can type in Perspectives 50 to save $50 when you join. And follow Matt and Satellite Investigations on LinkedIn. If you happen to have a question or a comment, you can also email Matt at matthews@satellitepi.com, and you can find him on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. Not so sure about TikTok these days. We want your feedback to bring you the best shows possible. And we'll be back next week with a new show. Make sure you tune in and stay safe out there.